Not all breakups with avoidance are abrupt, blindsiding discards. Many of them are the slow fade, where this person is pulling back, pulling back, pulling back, emotionally withdrawing more and more from the relationship, and you feel them slipping through your fingers. And the slow fade is often more painful and more anxiety producing than the abrupt discard. And the reason why dismissive avoidance and fearful avoidance will do the slow fade out is because their fears have been triggered, but they're trying to get you to be the one to end the relationship. Now, they'll slow fade out, slow fade out, slow fade out, and you'll ask them, is everything okay? They'll tell you everything's fine, but you can feel them withdrawing physically and emotionally from the relationship. Intimacy becomes virtually non-existent. And eventually, it reaches the point where they finally end it mercifully, or you cannot take it anymore and your nervous system is fried. You're sick of being an anxious mess and you cut it off, finally holding that boundary, which is what they wanted you to do in this instance. Because if you end the relationship and you cut it off, you're the bad guy. They're not the bad guy. They get to escape accountability for destroying the relationship because you're the one that ended it. They get to be the victim now. Accountability is so painful for avoidance because of a core wound of shame. Shame being that I'm defective, I'm not lovable emotion. And it's a toxic emotion. And even taking the slightest accountability, well, to them, it's the emotional equivalent of confirming their own defectiveness. It's so painful. So by making you pull that trigger, they get to escape that accountability. Now, rather than communicating with you about their fears, about their feelings, and giving the relationship an opportunity to work out, they shut down and withdraw because communicating risks conflict. And communicating about this stuff means vulnerability. And conflict and vulnerability feel deeply unsafe to them. And that stems from consistent, profound childhood emotional neglect. They were not given that love and nurturing that they needed, but in addition to that neglect, their feelings were sharply rejected, brutally rejected. And the message was sent to them, your emotions aren't welcome. And if you dare try to express your emotions, you're going to get rejected. And that rejection to them is confirmation of their own shame. So rather than communicating their feelings, fears, and needs to you, they get so overwhelmed with anxiety at the thought of even communicating that, or at the thought of the growing closeness and intimacy and vulnerability, that the only way they know to regulate their nervous system and feel safe again is to create emotional distance. Because if there's emotional distance between you and them, well, that way you can't get too close and figure out that they're defective. Because if they let you in and you get close, their subconscious fear is, ooh, my partner, if I let them in my heart, my partner's going to figure out that I'm not lovable. They're going to figure out I'm defective and they're going to reject me. And in the case of fearful avoidance, add in betrayal. They've learned from childhood that love equals pain, and anybody that you love and get close to is ultimately going to betray and hurt you. So their fears have been triggered, and rather than communicating them, rather than working them out, they withdraw. And in many cases, they'll even do the mental gymnastics, telling themselves, if my partner really loved me, if they cared about me, they would just know what I feel. They would just know what I want. Escaping accountability for their lack of communication by making it your fault for not knowing what they never told you. But ultimately, it's everything to do with their attachment wounds and their inability to communicate, as well as their emotional unavailability. Because emotional availability requires the ability and the willingness to empathize with your partner, to share their emotions, to care about their feelings. You know, the whole thought process of how do my actions impact this person? But when they're slow fading out, they're not thinking of you. They're not thinking of the emotional damage that they're causing to you. They're thinking of themselves and whatever it is that they perceive they want, need, feel, or fear in the moment. But you don't have to endure the slow fade out. It's far too painful to subject yourself to. Hold your boundaries. Your boundaries are your limits of what you'll allow, what you won't allow, what you'll subject yourself to. You can't control another person, and boundaries are not about controlling the other person. They're about you controlling your side of the street. So when they're slow fading out and you can feel that distance and that lack of effort and that lack of emotional connection, this is where you hold the boundary and simply say, I've been noticing a lot of distance between us and a lot of inconsistency. Is this relationship something that you are interested in continuing? Because this kind of distance is not something that works for me. And in order for me to feel safe, I need to see mutual effort and communication and consistency rather than the drift apart. There you go. Now the relationship might end, but if it does, you ended it, and it ended in a way where you preserved your dignity and respected your worth, because you don't need their validation to be worth something. You don't need them to choose you. If they can't show up for you and they are emotionally unavailable and can't communicate, then your worth is not dependent on that of a person that is emotionally immature and stunted that can't communicate. That's an emotional child. They don't get to determine your worth, but you can respect your worth and show up for yourself and hold boundaries. Because without boundaries, the slow fade out will just be prolonged and be that much more painful, and you'll lose yourself in the process, becoming more and more anxious. Don't do that to yourself. Show up for yourself. Don't subject yourself to the slow fade ever again.